Yes, you are welcome here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for saying yes to life. Thank you for being that place where God gets to represent itself as you, through you, in all that you do. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good day to you, wherever you are at this very moment in time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to yourself first, because that's important. And as you tune in, you can listen. And as you listen, you give yourself permission to be transformed. Transformation is a I want to say coactive. I guess you can say that. Co-creative. Well, actually, you can't create your transformation. It happens on a deeper level. But by doing your spiritual practice, you're able to align. You're able to tune in to that energy that wants to be more, that wants to show up as you. You got to cooperate with it. I am Ade, your transformational beingness artist. Welcome to another episode of Ade Presents, Being You, the journey back to yourself. This is season 3, episode 4, Tuesday, January 26, 2021. Oh boy, life is in session. 2021. Like I said, I think it was last week, there was a time when I thought of year 2000 just seems so foreign. And like, what does that mean? How is that even possible? And here we are now, 2021, talking about 2036. That's like life, isn't it? When you project forward, you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's going to be horrible. It's going to be great. But we don't really know what the future is going to offer us until we step into it. However, we don't wait for the future to happen. We create the future now. So when we step into it, we're like, oh yeah, I've been preparing myself for this. And our guest today has truly been preparing herself for this. I can't wait to join her or have her join me to find out more about her journey and introduce you to her. And speaking of joining, you can join us on our main broadcast platform, facebook.com, Being You Podcast, for a more interactive chat experience. So if you're on another platform or say on another site, we may not see your questions and comments. But if you have questions, comments, and you are looking at this, you're watching the podcast on another Facebook page, you may want to go to Being You Podcast page. That way we can see your questions and comments. Being You is about inviting you to take a look at yourself and ask yourself, how do I see myself? How do you see yourself? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself in the world? And how you see yourself in the world? That's the invitation on a daily basis, to take a look at yourself, not based on what your parents said, what your job is saying, what your financial bank account is saying, but how do you see yourself? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself in the world? Do you see yourself as part of it? Do you see yourself as separate from it? And how do you see the world in you? Sit with those questions, let it marinate. You don't even have to overthink it. As you listen and you set the intention to get a different point of view, you will. It may not be right now, but you will. God works through an open mind and open heart. I want to give you some quick announcements. If you're thinking of starting a podcast, or you started it, you're looking for a podcast hosting site, well, I have partnered with Libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. I've been with them since early last year. All my clients, that's why I recommend they sign up. They don't have to. You don't have to. But if you're thinking about it, if you go to their website, the services works for what I'm doing, and it may work for you. And on top of that, you got some nice incentives. So if you sign up anytime after the 2nd of the month, so today's the 26th. If you sign up today, you'll get the rest of this month for free, and you get the whole of February free. However, if I were you, I would say don't sign up right now. Wait till the 2nd of February. So you get the whole of February. Well, not the whole, but from the 2nd to the end, free, and then you get March free. Don't sign up on the 1st, but you can sign up whenever you want. You just won't get as much free services until you do. And you won't get the free month unless you use the promo code, which is ADE, ADE. Make sure you use that. Libsyn.com, Libsyn.com. Check it out. You may find that that's exactly what you need. What else do I want to tell you? I want to tell you about my, well, it's not my show. It's Rickie Byars' show. I co-produce and co-host the show with her, which is Soul Fulfilling. Soulful songs and soulful conversations. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. GMT. That's UK time. So if you can check us there every Wednesday, Thursday if you're in UK, we have a great time. And there's I'm joining a dear friend, someone who I've interviewed many years ago, on her podcast tomorrow, but we're pre-recording. So what I'm going to do is tell you when it's out. So I can't give you a lot of information about that, but you can check out her website. We Need Each Other. That's the name. I think if we need each other.com it is, or you can just do We Need Each Other podcast. And I'll let you know when that goes live. Well, today we are reclaiming the Black narrative. We're reclaiming our power. We are reclaiming our identity. We are reclaiming the truth of who we are. We get to tell ourselves, you don't get to define me. I define myself based on my own values, my own integrity, my own choices, and just because I'm is. That's right. You can call that abundance if you want. But I'm is. God is. I'm is. You is too, you know. And I have DeShuna Spencer here, ready to join us. I am going to read her bio, and we're going to jump in and keep it going. She is a founder and CEO of KweliTV, which celebrates global Black culture through curated, undiscovered, and award-winning indie films, documentaries, web series, children's program, and events. She is a former radio host and producer of Empower Hour, a show that examines social justice issues after affecting people of color on Washington, D.C.'s 89.3 FM WPFW. This sister, I don't even want to say too much, but she has been cultivating what we are experiencing, what she's birthing. She has won several awards. You need to check out their KweliTV by going to Kweli, that's KWELI.TV, and browse while we talk, and make sure you subscribe. You won't regret it. I want to bring her on. There's more that I can read about her, but I really want to bring her on. But before I do that, two things I want to do. One, I want to tell you where you can find her to find out more about KweliTV. All the social medias at KweliTV, KWELITV, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The website address, as I said earlier, is KWELITV, KweliTV. And now we want to show you something. So pay attention. Drop everything you're doing. Well, no, I won't say that. I was going to say something silly. I was going to say, even if you're driving. I just said it. I didn't mean to say it, but I said it. Well, don't listen to me. Listen to what I'm listening to. If you listen to what I'm listening to, you will do what's right for you. So anyway, all right, I'm ready, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. Let's shoot. Oh, yeah. You do your thing. I'll do mine.
Does your girlfriend know we're here? Yeah, she.
The system had one intention, to put us in prison. It's just that
simple. Okay. I love that. The beat. This is awesome. I was jamming over here. That's what happens when you tell the truth. Truth makes you move. Like, come on, let's do this. All right, let me calm down. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, psychics and skeptics, physical beings and non-physical beings, help me welcome my new friend. I'm claiming her as my friend. She might like, well, I don't really know you like that, but I'm claiming her as my friend. You know why? Because she is my sister. Why? Because we're one. So she's nothing but an expression of myself. Help me in welcoming, I almost call you Kweli. That probably happened before. DeShuna Spencer.
Hey, Ade, how are you? I do get called Kweli quite a bit.
I know. I think I tapped into that vibe, and I was like, no, it's not Kweli. I kept telling myself, it's not Kweli, it's not Kweli. All right. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Wonderful. Nice to have you here. So are you in DC or New York?
So I'm in the DC area. I'm literally about 6 or 7 miles from the Capitol where all the craziness happened a few weeks ago.
Wow. So how are you navigating these times and all this going on, being few blocks from the Capitol? How are you staying centered?
Honestly, a lot of meditation and prayer. 2020, I think for a lot of us, the new decade, we were sort of expecting all these things to happen positively, for 2020. But I think, it made us take a step back a bit, to kind of figure out like, how do you really want to present yourself to the world? And I really spent a lot of 2020 sort of mapping that out and just being more gracious with others and being more gracious with myself. I think one of the things about living in DC area, people are extremely type A, like go, always working, always trying to get more things done, trying to conquer the world. But because of COVID, I wasn't traveling. 2019, I was traveling at least twice a month. And in 2020, my last flight was in the last week in February. I went to a Berlin Film Festival, and I got home February the 29th, and I haven't been on a flight since. I also got my eyebrows done since March either. Which is like,
girl, let me tell you, I understand. Mine needs some work too. But anyway,
because that's the last one to get my eyebrows threaded. So I'm breathing in my face. But for me, I was like, okay, DeShuna, give myself more grace. It can be depressing being cooped up in the house, not being able to sort of just basically everything you had planned, just throwing away and trying to figure out what's this new pathway. But for me, when I do get depressed, because I do miss going out, I miss seeing my friends. I'm doing things virtually with my family, so I don't miss like those moments. But I do meditation in the morning, prayer, being grateful for being alive and being well, and just being happy for that. And I think, when we're going through these times, whether it's, something dealing with the pandemic or political or financial, all these things that are happening, especially is really affecting Black people more in the US, on all fronts, right? I've just been trying to be more gracious with myself and say, okay, DeShuna, if you don't finish this, it's not the end of the world. Like, you're alive, you're not on the ventilator, you have food on the table, you have a roof over your head, and that's been how I've been trying to survive. And my husband's been here. He's working from home too. He's been home since March. I think like the second week of March. And so, he's working upstairs and working downstairs and just trying to make do with this situation that I think the entire world is kind of dealing with, minus the insurrection part, which was only an American issue. But everything else has been a global issue.
Yeah. And, for me, it's like you said, this opportunity to get still, to think differently. And I think if there ever was a time, 2020 for me, I saw it as what I called it showtime. It's like no more rehearsal. Anything that you say, that you say you believe, that empowers you, that inspire you, this is the time to do it. It wasn't the time to be going, I don't know. Is that me or is that God? I don't know. I mean, I know people are still having questions sometimes, like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What is mine to do? But I feel like we're in a place now where, ask the question, but stay in action.
Right.
There's always something to do. And even if it's just, I say even if just, because meditation is not just, but it is. I had a moment today before the show. I just felt like I'm doing so many different things. I was on a webinar and then working on the show, And I'm like, okay, you just need to stop. I had to stop, took a minute, set my timer for a minute to come back down. Because sometimes, because we can't see our thoughts, we're not always aware of the thoughts that we're thinking. But things like meditation, it's the simple and most powerful gift to bring ourselves back to ourselves. And yeah, we need to we need to pay more attention to that. And the spiritual practice, prayer, if you're going for a walk, thankfully, like in UK, there's a major lockdown, but we can still go to the store.
Right.
We can still go for a walk. I just moved recently, so I'm next to the ocean, like 5-7 minutes. So I can go there. I didn't go today, but I think I'm definitely going tomorrow.
Oh, if I'm in the ocean, I'll be walking there all the
time. I know, that's right. It's like, what? You didn't go?
Exactly.
There are many reasons, but yes. So I'm going to remember what you just said. Like when I'm saying, well, it's kind of cold and rainy, I'm going to remember what you said. Like, go and do it.
Yeah, most of us wish we live. I live near a river. It's just not quite the same. But whenever, I feel the mood to walk down there, it's not as beautiful as the ocean. The water isn't as pristine as, as the ocean is. But I love walking on the water. It definitely gives me that center moment as well.
It certainly does. I do my prayer there. I release. I drop things in there. So, yeah, there's conversation about Kweli and Kweli. We'll come to that later. We have a listener, a faithful listener, spelled the same way, Kweli, and we've talked about it. And she pronounces her name Kweli, and as you and I talked about yesterday. So when I say Kweli, right? It's like my brain is like, no, it's Kweli. And she's kind of pointing out, she said, Ade, the way you're pronouncing Kweli is the way people say my name, but you have always said the correct way. So yeah, we'll talk more about that. But speaking of names, DeShuna, see, this show is about being you. It's a reminder, an invitation for people to tap into themselves and really ask deeper questions. Like, we say, all you got to do is be yourself. But sometimes we don't know that self. We don't know. We don't even know if the things we believe are our beliefs. I could say I don't like that, and this is why I don't like it. But maybe it was passed down to us. And I think I believe that in doing the spiritual work, the meditation, the prayer, it returns us to ourselves, and it gives us an opportunity to ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I need? How am I showing up in the world? And I believe that it connects us to our spiritual nature. And in a human body, one of the things that connects us to our spiritual nature, what I call a soul signature, is our names. Our names have a vibration. There's a vibration to each name, and it has a meaning. So with that said, what is the meaning of your name, or what does it mean to you?
It's interesting. My name is, I would call it it's just a Black name, DeShuna.
He said it's just a Black name.
It is. It's just, being honest, it's like a Keisha or Lashana, or, it's like I wouldn't say the typical, my name is not very typical, but when I was growing up, people asked me, especially, people who, had names with meanings, I would just say sunshine. That was always what I would say it meant. I did ask my mom because, like, my brother's name is Willie. I'm from the South originally, from Memphis. I live in the DC area now, but from the South. And so my brother's name is Willie, and my sister's name is Dapra, and they have normal names, quote unquote. And my name is DeShuna. It's a very unique name, a capital S, all these things. Like, why did my mama decide to, do a little extra flavor for me? But she said, I forgot what she said. I think she combined two people together, and she thought it was really pretty, and that's kind of how she came up with my name. But when people did ask me growing up, I would say, oh, it means sunshine. That was just what I would tell people back in the day.
Well, I like that, sunshine. But guess what? I've been doing some digging.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I found. Hold on one second. Where is it? Right here. So I got to do something here. Sometimes I look up the meaning of a guest name before, and I definitely was feeling that about your name for some reason. And so here's what I found. So, of course, it spells, well, not of course, but it has an A in the Shauna here. Yours doesn't have the A in it. So this is DeShauna. Personally, I think it's the same, but it's not my name. You might say, no, that's a different name. But here's what they said, why I really wanted to share this, which I thought Interesting. So he said, DeShuna, you are strong in material matters, determined and stubborn. You have good business ability. You are a good worker, steady and practical, a builder who takes responsibility well. These qualities may bring you a position of authority and power. You are a doer, down to earth, serious minded, reliable, self disciplined, have good power of concentration. You have an eventful, exciting life. You're versatile and have the ability to learn easily. You're always looking for a chance to do your own thing, to be your own person, and to have things done your own way.
Where'd you find that? Wow. I'm very stubborn. I am a really hard worker. Yeah, it does describe me quite a bit actually. It is really interesting. Where'd you find that?
What's the website? I googled it yesterday. Let me see. Maybe it's in another note that I had, because I usually when I do that, I keep, because there's so many where I'm going to Google it, but I'm going to share the that with you.
Yeah, I'd
Maybe
be really curious to see it.
yeah, because just a little that I've read about you, what I know about you, I'm reading them like, yeah, this is her. You know, I kind of felt weird because I barely met you, but I just felt as I was reading it, it's like, yeah, this is her, no doubt. So, and then the things that you've created. So for me, it was like, yeah, definitely. But I'll definitely send that to you.
Yeah,
So now we're talking about names, and we want to talk about your baby, KweliTV, KweliTV. And it's like, is it Kweli? Is it Kweli? Which one is it?
it's Kweli. So backstory, and I started KweliTV. I used to call my company KweliTV, and I was based off of Talib Kweli, the rapper and artist. And there was a song back in the day, Kweli, he would talk about how you pronounce it, party. And so when I would tell people how you say it, I would like sing some of his song. And so 2 years ago, when we were launching out of beta, we did a commercial on KweliTV, and we hired people to come in, and they would Kweli. It kept saying Kweli. We post a video on Instagram, and a bunch of native Swahili speakers who live in Kenya were like, "You're saying it wrong. Americans always hijack Black culture." Da, da, da. I'm like, well, I'm Black too. I mean,
Hello.
teardrop. And so we basically took down the video and we re-edited to make sure that we were being authentic to the way it's supposed to be pronounced. And so that is why I changed it to how I say it to Kweli, because I want to make sure that we're saying it correctly for our brothers and sisters who speak fluent Swahili, who are in that part of Africa. But yeah, I think for a lot of us, especially for a lot of Americans too, and those who are, or anyone who isn't from the continent, we're still learning, right? We were ripped away, whether, in any type of way, right? Ripped away. And so we're still trying to figure out, culture on the continent. And for me, making a name in a language from Africa, I wanted to connect me as African American to the continent and also connect it around the world. But in doing that, I just need to make sure that, we're being authentic and showing, people how it's supposed to be pronounced and doing good justice to the language. And so definitely we took it down. I say Kweli, I don't say Kweli anymore. When people say Kweli, I may not say anything. It just depends on, what mood I'm in. But typically if I'm speaking or if I'm like doing an interview, I will say, hey, it's actually Kweli. But if it's just, I'm talking to someone, oh, KweliTV, right? Yeah, it's fine. Because we don't know, like, we were ripped away. So we don't know about the different languages. We're sort of just figuring it out. And I don't know why Talib Kweli says Kweli. I don't know why he chose Kweli versus Kweli. He probably maybe just didn't know any better, right? But I think if you know, you live and you learn, and once you learn and you do better and you fix it. And that's what we did with that commercial.
That's it. I feel you. So let's talk about KweliTV. In my head now, I'm thinking, did I say it right? So let me ask you, what led you to creating a streaming network, and why did you call it KweliTV?
So KweliTV was pretty much born of me wanting to see these stories myself. And so many years ago, I was flipping through a bunch of cable channels And either it's like Real Housewives, whatever, or the same throwback movies. I like history. I like documentaries, and I didn't really see any Black documentaries. I would see some maybe on Black History Month, but they would typically be the same MLK documentaries or the water hoses and things like that, and not really a lot of richness. I feel like there's so much more to the Black story beyond. We love MLK, we love Martin Luther King Jr. You know, he was a great man, but definitely wanted to tell stories beyond the civil rights movement, even before the civil rights movement, and even beyond America. You know, and so I didn't see those stories, and I remember going to this very popular streaming service, and while I did see some Black content, it still wasn't everything I was looking for, and it still had. I always tell people from like a white lens, where it's a Black story told through a white lens, if that makes sense. And so maybe there's a Black streaming service that has this. I mean, it was really me just searching for this, right? It's like, well, maybe a Black streaming service has this, and they'll have what I'm looking for, and I couldn't find it. And then that's when the light bulb hit off, like, I'll start a streaming service, which is insane. Who said that? I'm going to just start a streaming service. There's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's hard to start, and I'm just going to do it myself. But that's pretty much how it got started. At the time, I was working on a documentary called Mom Interrupted, and I had screened the film festival, and also started to understand some of the issues that filmmakers of color, particularly Black filmmakers and women, face when trying to get distribution for their work. Of course, because of last year with what happened with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, there has been this renaissance where people care about Black lives, care about Black stories. But I would say this, there will come a time where there's another thing that people care about. And the beauty of KweliTV is no matter what happens, you know, this will always be our mission. This isn't our mission just because what happened to George Floyd or the countless others. This is our mission regardless of that. And so that's what makes us different from maybe other platforms that are starting to understand the importance of Black storytelling. But like, this is something we do every single day, not because it's Black History Month, not because of unjustified death. Like, this is our life. This is our life's work. And so the name, you know, once I decided to say, okay, I'm going to start the streaming service, like, what name should I come up with? I knew I wanted it to be an African language, and I was trying to figure out what African language should it be. I decided to choose Swahili because, as an American, most people know that Swahili is an African language. So not so many people know about Zulu and the other languages, mainly because of Kwanzaa. In America, we sort of got acclimated to Swahili, and so I was like, okay, it should be a term or a language that people know it already exists. And then I wanted the name to mean something. And so I was thinking like authentic, you know, truthfulness. Like those are the words that were popping in my head because I wanted to show an authentic representation of Black experience versus what a lot of times we see in mainstream media. I wanted to change that narrative, and change the narrative means telling the truth. And so I just started looking up names. And at first I wasn't sure if I wanted to use Kweli in particular, mainly because of Talib Kweli. I wasn't sure what people get confused. But then like there's Spike Lee and there's Spike TV, you know, there you know, all these, there's Rolling Stone, the group, and Rolling Stone magazine. So there are instances where people use the same name. And so I was like, I'm just gonna go with it. It rhymes, KweliTV, it has a ring to it, it's simple, and people have seen the word before. And I decided to run with it and bought the domain name and went from there to try to figure out how to actually make this vision a reality.
Like, now I got a domain name. Okay. And speaking of which, has there been a time, particularly in 2020, where you sat back and really thought, wow, this was a great idea to start a Black streaming network? Did you have a moment where you felt like, I think I was ahead of the time, and now people are catching up?
So I wasn't sure. I was thinking I was ahead of the time. I don't know if I would call myself that, but I will say that I came up with the idea initially in 2012. So it's been a long time. In 2012, I applied for a grant, and I didn't win the money. I was a finalist because before that I had an online magazine. I thought that would be my life's work. I have this online magazine, have this radio show, and this thing called Empower, and that would be my legacy. And then this whole idea for KweliTV popped up in my head, and I started to say, okay, should I pivot to something else? And so 2012, spring of 2012, I applied for this grant. It was for women entrepreneurs, women journalists. And there were 10 finalists. I was one of the finalists, but I wasn't one of the 5 companies that got the $20,000. But because I was a finalist, I could ask, why didn't I win? And they said they weren't sure about the future of streaming. That was literally what all the judges said. And this was in 2012. So you think about it, 2012 was literally just Netflix and Hulu at the time. HBO Go existed, but it was just pretty much like a off branch of the cable channel. They really weren't. It was no HBO Max, and none of these things existed. And so I was thinking, like, am I wrong about streaming? Like, that's where I see things going, but maybe I'm wrong. But also, too, like, these were all people in media, and media people are always wrong about the future. They're wrong about the internet and newspapers. And the reason why newspapers have been dying off is because they underestimated the internet and thought, I'm just going to put my content for free and also have the print version. And they never thought to do the paywall early on. So they never know. They're always off. And so I shouldn't have tried.
Like Blockbuster, right?
Exactly.
They slept on the job.
Exactly. It's interesting too. You never know who you meet. So like back in the day, I used to work at Blockbuster actually, and I was in high school and college, kind of full circle. And one day, like in Whole Foods bar, I ended up meeting the former CEO of Blockbuster. And he was a CEO of Blockbuster, I want to say like 96 to 2000 or something like that. And so that was around the time that Netflix started. And I was like, hey, why didn't you guys, like, you could have easily killed Netflix like once. And he was like, we didn't really think it through. We just didn't think that it would be that big of a deal. We thought it would be harder for them to sort of beat them. I think that people underestimate the power of like small companies and these crazy ideals. And like the founder of Netflix, he started Netflix because I think it was like Top Gun or some random, True Lies or, some random movie his wife rented, and it was like a late fee. He was really annoyed with the late fee. And he wanted to like take down Blockbuster because his wife had a late fee. It was literally as simple as that.
Wow.
Yeah, I worked at Blockbuster, and I was like a teenager, so like the late fees. Oh my God, people like cursed me out. So I know firsthand how traumatized people were about the late fees. But just something like that, right? Late fees for me, it was just like I want to see myself on screen. I want to see my family. I want to see my husband represented and my friends. And I think a lot of times people start that way, and you don't know how the things are going to project. I'm not sure if he said, okay, one day we're going to be streaming, we won't always be DVD, but I think that Blockbuster, they definitely dropped the ball, but a lot of big legacy companies always drop the ball because they're so focused on maintaining and never see the vision of where things can go in the future, and they're afraid to take those gambles until everyone else is doing it because they're afraid that they're going to lose money. As versus a startup, you're just hungry and you just willing to try anything.
Right. You said, what money am I losing? I don't even have money to lose. Exactly. That's an advantage.
Exactly.
I used to think, it's like, how is it that Netflix came about and then left basically Blockbuster, who was already in the renting of movie business? And I've always wanted to understand why, and what you're saying just makes sense. And the same way, we just never thought about it. And we can get so comfortable in where we are because maybe we think things are good, but things are constantly changing. And the thing that kind of strikes me, what you said, so you were in high school when you met the CEO.
No, I wasn't in high school. I met him like 2 years ago, like at a Whole Foods bar. And I'm a very talkative person. And I don't know how I ended up finding out that he was like the former CEO of Blockbuster US. But I just struck up a conversation with him. And I just learned that he's like, oh yeah, I think he first mentioned he was the CEO of another business that's out of business now. The children's store, Toys
R Us.
Yeah, Toys R Us. Yeah, another again, not such a good track record.
Don't partner with him.
I know,
Don't
right?
partner with him. Don't, even if he has the money, say tell him to keep it.
Exactly, right? So after the Blockbuster in 2000, then he became the CEO of Toys R Us, I think like in the early 2000s or something like that. So he was saying like, oh, I don't know how we started striking the conversation, but he was saying, oh yeah, I was the CEO of Blockbuster. I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, I worked there, and it was in high school and a little bit of like freshman year in college. And he said, oh, really? And so we just struck up a conversation, but he said they were just so focused on the money train. I don't really think they assumed that people would really gravitate to Netflix that much, because Blockbuster was such a ritual. Just now, like Netflix is a ritual for people. Netflix and chill, blah blah. Friday nights, I worked at Blockbuster on Friday nights. I mean, that was the night everyone would be swarming in. The new DVD would come out, and everyone's trying to get there first. So people calling me, you got that, whatever was coming out at that time. And so I remember like it was this ritual. People be crowding in Blockbuster, getting their popcorn and being ready to sort of spend time at home. And Netflix just killed all that. I mean, that whole ritual of Friday nights at Blockbuster.
Yeah, I feel like you're taking me down because I remember those times, and it also speaks to saying that there's a statement, I think it's in the Bible, this too shall pass. And oftentimes when we're telling people this too shall pass, it's when things are challenging, things are difficult. So we try and encourage people and say this too shall pass, but it goes for everything. Whether you're successful, it doesn't mean you're going to end up hitting rock bottom, but what you're doing, how you're doing is going to change. And if you don't stay in the present and meditate and pray and just kind of asking for guidance, it's easy to kind of we'll leave ourselves behind. And so what I want to ask you is, so you had this idea of starting a Black streaming network. And when you had the thought, did you kind of think, wait, what? How am I even going to do that? But of course, you stuck with it. What kept you going?
I know it's interesting. I would say maybe faith, and a bit of being naive, and also a bit crazy. I think that I'm just saying, like,
I understand. I understand.
Any true entrepreneur, you have to be slightly insane. You work long hours, you make no money, people are telling you suck, or they love you. Like 1 minute people are telling you how much they love you, the next minute people tell you how much you suck, or and so it's such a roller coaster ride of emotions, and sometimes you wonder, like, am I making the right decision? In 2012, when I did not win that money, I had thoughts about, okay, maybe this was too crazy of an ideal anyway. Maybe this isn't for me. And so I started to focus on other things. Actually, I always tell people I had like this Job moment, like literally a month after I did win the money. My brother and his wife, their first child died. So my nephew died, and then 2 months later, my aunt died, and then 2 months after that, which was that November of 2012, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. He's a non-smoker. And so honestly, I didn't have time to think about much of KweliTV because I was just going through the motions. And 2 years before that, my mother-in-law had lung cancer. She had passed away. So I was still kind of traumatized from me and my husband being full-time caregivers for her. We had to move to Buffalo, the last 5 weeks of her life, and we took care of her until she passed and watched her pass. And then my dad gets diagnosed stage 3B. And so that end of 2012, same thing, almost exactly. My dad survived, but ended up moving back to Memphis for 5 weeks, helping my mom out because I know how it is to take care of someone with cancer, and I didn't want my mom doing it by herself. And because at the time, even though I wasn't working on KweliTV, I was working on some other projects as an entrepreneur, and so I had the flexibility of being at home, working from home during that time. And so when I go into 2013, it didn't get any better. My dog became paralyzed, literally like that January 2013. My dad was admitted to the hospital. I got sick on Easter. I had a bunch of fibroids, so I was like almost hemorrhaged, and it was insane. And then my dad spent my dad spent most of that 2013 in the hospital, and I was supposed to have surgery. I spent most of 2013 in excruciating pain. I refused to have surgery because I wasn't sure sort of how my dad was doing. I didn't want to be incapacitated for a amount of time if I need to go home. And so my dad finally got out of the hospital. I want to say a week after Thanksgiving, November 2013. I had my surgery that first week in December of 2013. I was on bed rest through the early 2014. And I went to 2014 in the days, like what in the world happened? It was just crazy. And so I want to say in 2014, spring 2014 was when I had another opportunity for another competition. And I'll never forget, I went to my husband's office upstairs where he's working there right now with the door closed because I'm doing this interview. I was like, there's an opportunity to do another competition. I always lose, I was like, I probably shouldn't do it. He's like, so you never know, like go for it anyway. And so the deadline was in 2 days. And so I decided to put my all into the application, and I became a finalist, and I won that money. I got the money like January 2015, and that's where the wheels started to turn to figure out how to actually make this thing, because I had $20,000 to try to build the MVP, and that's kind of how it started from there. But again, life is about taking chances. You don't know what's going to happen. It's almost like being married. Like you love someone, you think you're going to be together forever, and you work towards that. You don't work toward divorce, right? And so you just know, you never know. But same thing with a business, like you work for success. And so I think what's kept me going is just having faith and being a bit naive. And I think there are people who've tried to do similar things who have a lot more experience, a lot more people by their side, a lot more everything than I have, but they also know more. They work for these big companies, they work for these big networks, and they expect these big budgets, and they're not able to be that startup that's naive and to understand how the system works and navigates their way through any type of way. That's sort of my story, right? And so definitely, it's just been me sort of persevering no matter what. And honestly, I'll never forget, when I was a finalist for the competition, it was in 2014. And like I say, I pray, meditate a lot. I don't go to church, but I do. Well, no one is now because of COVID.
God is not only in the church, God is everywhere anyway, Yeah, I get my best inspiration in the bathroom. I was telling a friend today.
I do my best prayers in the shower, like literally I'm showering. And so while I don't, attend like an institution but I pray, meditate to God. I literally prayed, a week before I got the money, and saying, okay, God, if KweliTV is everything I'm envisioning it to be, like, let me win the money. If it's not, and I remember crying as I was praying this, because I really wanted to win. Because I hate losing. Like, we all hate losing, right? And we want to think that what we're envisioning ahead is supposed to happen. But I also knew that I didn't want to go down the path of doing something that wasn't for me, because if the road is going to be this hard and the road is going to be this long, you don't want to go down the wrong road.
Right.
You don't want to waste years of your life driving in the wrong direction. And so I literally prayed to God. I was like, look, God, I had this idea for Empower. I thought this would be my legacy. I thought this is what you wanted me to do. But if I'm really meant to do KweliTV, and if it's supposed to be what I'm envisioning, then let me win the money. If it's not, then don't let me win the money. I don't want to win the money. I don't want to go down the path. And I was like, God, I don't want to pray this. God, I was like, I don't want to win. I'm just saying, I want to win. But understand that if it's not for me, it's not for me. And I was so nervous praying that prayer, because I really wanted to explore what KweliTV could be.
Yeah. And
I won the money. So obviously, I guess it's meant for me, but it's been such a hard journey. And I question it, like, you sure, God? Because this is hard work. Like, I'm up late, blood, sweat, and tears, literally blood, sweat, and tears. While 2020 was a hard year for a lot of people, 2019 was a really hard year for me. And, for the company, we experienced all this wire fraud, and we were hacked and so many times, and we lost money and customers, and it was just so traumatic for me, and I was questioning everything. But if you believe in your vision and you're clear, and You just have to keep going until you hear otherwise. And that's basically what I've been doing these couple of years.
There's so much in what you said. I think of your prayer. For me, how I hear it is the ultimate surrender. You know, you want it so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, if this is not the highest and best, if this is just gonna, if this means this is me working towards divorce, then I don't want it. But if I'm working towards a successful marriage, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when I hear you, it's like we sometimes pray for the thing that we think we want because we believe that's what we need, while praying to God the divine or whatever name we want to call it. But in prayer, for me, prayer is a shift in consciousness. It's not even about God. It's already done. And the moment when we're willing to give up that thing that we say we want, like, if this is for me, let it be. If it isn't, I surrender. I mean, in that place, we will see the results of our own words.
Right.
And so I listen to that, I'm just feeling the energy of that prayer. And then I thought of, you know, all that you went through and then still be able to come up. Like, if you, for lack of a better analogy, if you end up being depressed, an alcoholic, people will keep saying, yeah, it's understandable because look at what happened in her life. So it makes sense. And yes, that does happen to people. And I wonder if losing your, you said you're losing your nephew,
My aunt, my
your
mother-in-law,
aunt,
my dad's still with us. Thank God. You know, he's been in remission now for years. But he,
and
it was,
all of that illness, all of that breaks our heart when someone we love is going through pain, and sometimes we can't even help them.
right.
You know, don't know what to do. And I wonder if that breaking of your heart, where you just had to give it up, I wonder if that gave you the strength to take more risk. Do you think?
I think so. Like I said, everything that happened in 2012 and then 2019, because I mentioned like all the things happened like for the business, but then at the same time, my dad got sick again with something called diverticulitis. He went down to like 112 pounds. My dad's 6 feet tall. And then my husband got diagnosed with, it's called sarcoidosis, which is like an autoimmune disease that affects your lungs. And so my dad and my husband are sick at the same time. I'm going through wire fraud and sites getting hacked and people trying to break into our Stripe account and taking money, and and I couldn't make money because someone hacked it to the point where every time we would try to charge people, that it wouldn't go through. This happened. It was like going on for months. 2019 was such a 2012 and 2013 was mentally draining. 2019, I was extremely depressed. Like I was very depressed in 2019. I would go back home and visit my dad, and him being so frail. I mean, 6 foot tall man. He lost more weight with diverticulitis than he did when he had cancer. And seeing him that small, my husband's coughing, he's on the medication. It was a lot for me to deal with. But I think at the same time, when you deal with those things, like it does make you stronger. Like either it makes you and break you, And so for me, it made me understand that whatever happens in life, like especially when it comes to business, like it can't be any worse than the uncertainty of health, right? The uncertainty of seeing your loved ones really sick. Like if I can deal with that, I can deal with whatever's happening with the company. But I think it's also okay to take some time to mourn and take the time to be sad and cry. Like I cried a lot 2019, more than I probably cried in my entire life, because I'm not really a crier. Like growing up, I was a family member like, DeShuna never cries. She's always, strong, but I cried so much during that time because it was just so much for me, and I wasn't sure if I would see my way out of it. But it's okay to cry if you need to cry. I think sometimes people feel I need to be strong all the time and I can't show my emotion, but let it out, and it's okay. And I question so many things, and I think at the end of the day, you're like, okay, this too shall pass, as you say, eventually. And it did. And then we go into 2020, like, yeah, it's going to hit the ground running. And then, like, oops, I guess, what we doing that? Not like I thought.
Not right now. Little lady, sit down. Not ready yet. Wow. Whew, I just invite listeners to take a breath in because we are connected and I'm feeling it. I'm listening to your story. I feel emotional, so I know people are feeling it. And we all have our own individual experiences that we go through. And sometimes we feel like we're alone. And, to hear somebody else talk about it and how they got over, if you will, is a way of inspiring us to keep moving forward. So this, loving this. So you went through all that. There is a narrative of, Black people don't have the financial power to compete with major corporations, and it's hard for Black people to survive in business. And I'm not sure if you dealt with those or had some of those thoughts while you were going through developing KweliTV and all the personal challenges that you went through. How were you able to navigate the personal challenges and the business challenges as well as being hacked? Did you have a time where you're saying, this is a crazy idea, and how am I going to compete against those big guys anyway? Just me here trying to build this. Was there a time when you felt like I gave it up? And what helped you, if you did? And really, I've sort of asked the question, but I'm really looking to maybe just investigate a little bit more, like squeeze out some more juice. Like what? So in addition to not giving up, what is that thing? Do you hear from spirit? Like keep going? What kept you putting one foot in front of another?
Like you mentioned at the beginning, like my name is DeShuna. I'm very stubborn. And so I don't quit very easily, number one. I would also say that it's been really hard. I wouldn't say, there have been times when I'm crazy. Like, why are you doing this, DeShuna? But I also think that at the same time, like I'm at this point where I'm at a point of no return. I just kind of have to see where the end will be, wherever that is, because I have customers that are relying on me. We have over 300 filmmakers who are like thinking that, KweliTV can really be something, and they're excited about where things can go. We had this partnership with Lil Rel, and he's had a company, and we have other people who want to work with us and partner with us. And so you just can't flip that switch off, right? It's not that simple. I do know people who could do that and say, you know what, they just gonna have to understand because this is too heavy of a burden for me, right? I have a responsibility to continue on this mission. I really see it as a responsibility to my filmmakers, to my customers, to the people who have partnered with me on this journey to make this something, make this what we're all envisioning would be. And so that is what keeps me going. Honestly, like I have no choice. I have a friend, a really great friend. She owns a store in DC, and same thing. She's like, we had these conversations. I always tell people if you're an entrepreneur, help make friends with other entrepreneurs, because that way you can sort of have those powwow moments and really wind down and really share that you can't necessarily share with others. And she was saying, same thing with me. Like she just can't. You have a store, you have employees, and they have children and health insurance, and yeah, it's hard. But like you also have almost like you have children. You just can't say I don't want to be a parent anymore.
I was just thinking that. Yes.
I don't want to do this anymore. I want to. Where are you going to take them, right? Now you have this responsibility, and so we're in it, and the train is moving, and I can't, turn the train off where people are on the ride still, and there's this road ahead. I can't, it would be wrong of me to do that. We're making money, it's not perfect. We have customers, it's not perfect, but we have all these things that are working, for our benefit while it's not the perfect scenario. And I can't just stop. Even when I'm like, it's 3:00 in the morning and I'm like, why in God's green earth am I up, sending out emails or doing whatever? Like I should be in bed. Like I want to be in bed, but I can't because there's just so much to do.
Listening to a higher call, I think of the statement, pain pushes until vision pulls. And I listen to you, you're being pulled by a higher vision. That vision replenishes us even while we're feeling weak.
Mm-hmm.
That responsibility to something more in other people. Yeah, I get it. I understand. So we're talking about reclaiming Black narratives, and there's a lot going on. There are a lot of people who've had to sacrifice their lives for particularly white people to pay attention and Black people to pay attention because I think representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
In the world we live in, diversity is important. And it is also important for Black people, BIPOC community, to own their stuff. And there have been some people who've been ahead of the game, and sometimes we're led to believe that if you're not joining with these other companies, you can't succeed. It takes responsibility, it takes courage. But what would you say to people who have an idea? Maybe they just caught the idea, the thought of something they want to do that seems so crazy, and they think, yeah, this is exactly what Black people need. This is what BIPOC community needs. But they're afraid that they might fail. They're afraid that it's a crazy idea. They're afraid that, oh, there are other multi corporations out there that will take them out. What would you say to them as it relates to holding on to the vision?
I would say do it afraid.
Mm.
I do lots of things even when I'm afraid to do it. I've pitches and meetings and reached out to organizations and built partnerships when I was like, do I even belong here? Like my partnership with, like we have a partnership with Comcast, we have Apple and Comcast. And, it's interesting, working with Comcast, I met with like 10 to 15 of their team members, and they're all dealing with me because, like KweliTV is so small, but they're still working with us. And so I think if you do anything with being authentic in what you do and do it with excellence to the best of your ability with the resources that you have, that's all you can do, right? And just put it out there. I can't guarantee that it will be successful, it won't be successful, but you may just pivot. Like, again, for me, my big push was starting an online magazine. I thought that would be sort of what my life's work would be. And then I decided to pivot. And so my thing is start working on whatever is in your head now. It may change over time. It may morph into something else, but you don't know what it could morph into if you don't even put yourself out there to start building something. And so I would say just build it. You don't have to build it to, be as big as other brands. Just build the MVP, just, a beta, just something just to prove the
You say
concept.
MVP. What do you mean by MVP?
So MVP is a minimal viable product, and that's kind of like VC terms, basically. And that's when I built KweliTV. It was an MVP. You build the bare bones of your ideal. You want to prove your concept, and so that's what I did with KweliTV initially. I built an MVP to see if people wanted independent Black films. They wanted documentaries because people were telling me when I was sharing what my ideal was. Black folks don't want to watch documentaries. Black people only want to watch X, all the negative things that people think about Black people. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that because I love documentaries. I love the obscure independent film that's at a film festival. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. And so I wanted to prove that concept. And so I always tell people, build that first. Don't spend all the money. Just build something that can prove a concept and then go from there.
Do you, in your experience, has being a Black woman been a hindrance or an advantage, or both?
So I never say that it's a hindrance. I love being Black. I remember being a kid, I went to like this all-white school, elementary school, and people thinking, do you like being Black? I think maybe some white kid asked me that. I was like, kids, they don't know any better, right? I was like, yeah, I love being Black. But, as a kid, I would question things sometimes because my hair looked different. And, I was so apparently different from all the other kids in my class. I would never say that being Black and being a woman is a burden. I would say that, there are challenges along with, being Black and being a woman. For people of color, it's hard to raise money, like venture capital money. I had no idea going in that, it would be that hard. Like I know I think for like white women get like 2% of venture capital dollars. Black men get 1%, but Black women get 0.2%. So we only get half of 1%. We get less than half of 1%.
Right.
And so it was like shocking to me to hear that. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, this is going to be a lot harder than I realized when it comes to raising money. There have been people who've given us, a few convertible notes, but it's only been about 100K in the last couple of years. We have not raised like $1 million or anything like that. But I will say that, because of those challenges, I never wanted that to be the reason why I don't succeed. I don't like putting my fate into someone else's hands unless it's like God, right? There's no way in the world that some white VC in Silicon Valley is going to deny me from making my vision rally because you don't want to give me a check. Like, who are you? Whatever. And so I've always been stubborn that way. Ever as a kid, I grew up in a very religious household. So I was the kind of sort of rebellious kid. Like I couldn't do certain things, but I would just do it anyway because it wasn't trying to be bad. It was like doing things that normal kids would do, but for my household, it was like a sin. And so
the meaning of your name is you're determined and stubborn. So stubborn is not a negative thing if you're moving towards the direction of what you want.
Exactly.
Right?
But when you're a kid, being stubborn is not exactly a trait that most parents want their kids to have.
Yes, I was told that I was stubborn. Yep, I know what you mean. Yep.
Want them to listen and But what I will say, kind of backtrack to other things I went through. I remember I was such a stubborn child, but like when my dad was sick, and I remember being in Memphis, and my uncle was like, "DeShuna, we heard you're a pit bull." A pit bull? Okay, what does that mean? Good or bad? But those traits that maybe my parents didn't like about me, or no, I said they didn't like about me, but they were like, "Oh no, DeShuna." I think as an adult, like it's been an attribute because I was a real big advocate, for my dad when he was going through cancer. And then I've been a really big advocate for myself, for my company, and not, taking no for an answer. And so I think, being stubborn can be a good attribute if you use it in the right way. But yeah, it's, I would say that I love being a Black woman. I love my hair. I love the versatility. My hair wraps, and I love, where my ancestry comes from. And I feel like the beat inside of me and the rhythm and the flavor that I've been born with is because of who I am and ties back to the continent. And so I would want to be anything else. I love being a woman, and so I would want to be who I am. But despite those challenges, I'm making it work.
That's it. I mean, that's how we're showing up. It's like we won't ask somebody, how do you feel about being human? How do you feel about being a man? I mean, this, you could say, has its challenges and it has its advantages, but we got to live with it.
Right.
I'm going to take you off screen for a minute because it's kind of fuzzy and maybe it's internet connection, but I'm going to take you out. You just stay there and we're going to go 1 and 2. Oh, no, I didn't correct.
Okay.
Say cheese.
It's still
okay. Still fuzzy. I know you said your husband is working, so he may be on the internet as well.
I actually hear him upstairs. He's on the video call too, I think. So you know how it is.
That would do it. Well, we won't trip. It's a video call. If it was a video game, I'd be like, "Can you tell him to get off?"
Video games. Yeah, no, he's working upstairs.
No worries. There was something that I wanted to. Oh yeah. So you went from idea to a product that's viable and to launch, and now is gaining momentum. What have you learned from having a Black streaming network? I mean, it's a streaming network, and that's another thing that sometimes just gets on my nerves. You create something because you're Black, it becomes a Black streaming network.
Right.
It could just be a streaming network that caters to people of African descent.
Right.
And there's an advantage to it either way. But what have you learned about people, how people consume content? And maybe did some thoughts that you have about, well, I don't know if people want this movie or this kind of movie or this kind of genre, did any of that change?
I would say not necessarily. The vision was always to support these really great independent films and have children's programming and have great documentaries. I just wanted to prove that people wanted it. And so I will say over time, I've seen the types of documentaries that people like. And so I've been gravitating towards that. Our customers are really woke, in essence, where, they don't want to hear the same type of Black stories. They want to hear about figures that they may not have heard of before. They want to be celebrated through stories. They don't want to see the Help, or the Green Book. They want to see something that celebrates them and honors them fully. And so I will say, one of the things that I would say shifted a bit was in 2020, because everything that was happening with the pandemic, and I would say the uprising we're facing in the Black community around the world, that a lot of our customers were dealing with things, internally and mentally. And I started to focus on content that around healing and using, healing as a mechanism for looking for content on the platform, because I just want to make sure that our customers are doing okay mentally with everything that's happening. And it's spilling over into 2021 with the insurrection. Our customers were messaging us like, what is going on? We had a huge spike in viewership during those couple of days because as a Black American, I was insulted. Like 2020 with all all the Black deaths we've experienced, where you're scrolling through, or the Karens who you can't go anywhere without a Karen sort of walking up to you and asking, do you belong there as a Black
Let me see
person?
your ID. Oh,
Right. Or, the police brutality and all the other things, or the overzealous, the wacko, neighborhood people who want to shoot people for no reason, just because they're walking and running and they're Black in the neighborhood. All of that was very traumatic, for us as Black people, but was like the biggest insult and like a dagger in our heart was seeing a bunch of white people storm the Capitol and basically, do what they want. It was just disgusting. And most Black people in America were like, I'm done. Like, what is going on? And I saw that people wanted to see something that would counteract that on KweliTV, right? And so because of that, I think the work that I'm doing is extremely important. I see it's twofold. I see KweliTV as a space where people who look like us, no matter where in the world, can come and see yourselves reflected truthfully and be healed and not be triggered. But also see KweliTV as a space where people who don't look like us, because I always tell people, I go to these panels and a white person says, can I subscribe? I'm not Black. I'm like, the site's not going to shut down because you log in. You're going to scan your face and be like, okay, can I, further? Like, what do you mean can't subscribe? That's like the craziest thing I ever heard of my entire life. And of course, and I said, like, it's not going to cut you off. And people start laughing. But, I want people who don't look like us also to engage the platform, because I want them to see the Black experience that they don't see in mainstream media, because mainstream media isn't showing it a lot of times. And so that's the goal. That's the mission. I don't really try to, a lot of times a lot of networks go off, okay, what's going to get the most viewership? What's going to get the most clicks? Yeah, no, that's important. But, if you were to go off of what you think people want, you're going to get the Real Housewives, whatever, right? And I always use this analogy whenever I tell people about, our mission with KweliTV. If you feed, the reason that reality TV did was so huge, especially like in the 2000s, is because that's all that people were consuming. And so, well, people like it, so we're going to keep showing it to them. Well, that's what you're feeding people. If I get McDonald's every single day, that's all I eat. So I'm going to eat it, and you're going to think I like it because it's all, I get used to it. And I don't even want vegetables anymore because I've gotten used to the manufactured Big Mac taste, right?
Right. Everything else tastes, anything organic tastes horrible.
Exactly. You're afraid to try again because you think I may not like it because it's going to taste healthy, right? But
Mhm.
it's the same thing. And then you start eating McDonald's and you're gaining weight, or your health starts to deteriorate because all you're doing is I shouldn't like I feel like I'm like down in McDonald's. I've eaten McDonald's since 2004. I don't eat fast food, right? So
Mhm.
I purposely don't eat fast food, but there's no shade to people who eat McDonald's. But
That's
if you eat it, consistently every single day or any other type of fast food, your body starts to deteriorate because you're not eating nutrients. And it's the same thing with media and how you consume media. If you're consuming healthy content, it may be different because you're so used to the fighting and the drama and the false narrative that was like juicy but unhealthy. Like you love that, but then over time you start changing your diet and incorporating healthier type of content. You're going to want that more, and then over time you're all you're going to want is a healthier diet. And so I think that my goal is to feed people a healthier diet of content for them to
Mhm.
consume, and not really worry about what mainstream media may be feeding people and looking at that as my guide for like what we should be showing to consumers.
Yes, yes. I so get what you're saying, because what comes up for me, this idea there might be news medias that we say we don't appreciate, or they're not giving us the whole story, or
Mhm.
program that we think we don't like, but every time we click to watch it, we're voted and saying, yes, I want more of this. I
Mhm.
want more. Just like when something is trending. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. If you click it, you're telling the algorithms, show me
Mhm.
more of that.
Mhm.
And so if people want to see something different, they got to vote different. One of the things I love about KweliTV is, and I think, oh yeah, full transparency. I think there was one time you had like a 7 day or maybe even a month free, and I signed up. But I was one of those people that didn't continue. But you know what? I'm signing up. But anyway, what I want to say is what I love about it is the content is you bring different perspectives from different parts of the world.
Mhm.
And you don't get that on main channels. How does it work? Is it similar to other of the other streaming network you get? Because I know you offer 7 day
Mhm.
membership, and people pay monthly and they have access to anything, or they're different categories.
So we have monthly and we also have annual. It's 7-day trial. Monthly is $5.99 a month. If you do annual, it's $50 a year. So you save about $21 if you do annual subscription. And yeah, you get access to everything on the platform. We also have Kweli deals to get discounts to Black-owned businesses that ships in the U.S. and some international locations. And then we're also looking to create more, I say, loyalty type of incentives for customers. So you get a lot of things if you subscribe to KweliTV. We were doing live events in 2019 where we were in New York, LA, Chicago, DC, Atlanta, and Oakland. And the goal for 2020, some people from the UK were asking about us coming there, and Miami, other areas, but COVID, we couldn't do it. But our hope is that, once things are safe, we want to continue that on. And so that was free for our customers. And so really looking to create incentives and create community around our content. But yeah, you get access to everything. We will be exploring with some bundles where people, they may only be into documentaries, or they may only want children's programming, but they can pay a smaller fee just for those shows by itself. And so we're looking to sort of do a deeper dive into that and do some testing with some unique business models in 2021.
Mm. So imagine you and I sitting in a cafe, right? And you're really just telling the truth about the truth TV, the honest truth about KweliTV. What would you really want people to do or offer, contribute to KweliTV?
The best way to me, I tell people to contribute is just to go to the website and sign up. I
Mhm.
think there's this misconception about, well, I live here, I live X, can I get it? Like we're global. We receive worldwide rights to about 95% of our films. So you can watch almost anything on KweliTV, no matter where anywhere if you have internet access. And so the best way to support us is to subscribe and share. Like that is the best way you can really do anything for us, because we want more people to know we exist. We want people to know that, I built this for my community. Of course, I want everyone to, we're not telling people if you're not Black, you can't, come on. But my first priority is making sure that, we're being authentic and we're being a safe space for our community, number one, and then number two, education for others. But yeah, definitely sharing us and spreading the gospel, as I like to say, about KweliTV to as many people as possible.
It's really interesting that when a business or product or service, it's the founder or the creator is Black, somehow there's this question for people who are in a white body feeling like, I'm not Black, can I buy your product? But Black people don't go to Netflix or Whole Foods and say, I'm Black, can I spend my money here?
Right,
Even that thinking is war.
right,
You know, and I can, I don't know. I have compassion if I understand why people are asking, but the fact that we're asking that kind of question, I'm not going to say asking that question in 2021 because it really doesn't matter. It's not like we had a goal when we were born, like, 2021, there'll be no more racism. No, racism and injustice and all that we experience it is part of the human experience, and we get to change it. We get to heal it. We get to bring the solution. But the question, like, well, I'm not Black, can I subscribe? When did how you look determines what you subscribe to?
Yeah.
I just think that's crazy thinking. It's just crazy.
It is. And we get, I get it. I used to get quite a bit at speaking engagements, and even like on social media, we may post a video about a particular film, and someone it says, "Oh, I would love to see this, but this platform isn't for me because I'm white." And I'll message back like, "Hi, you're for everyone. Subscribe if you want to see this movie. You can subscribe and watch it." Thank you. I think part of it may be, I don't want to feel like I'm imposing on the Black community and this is space for us, so I don't know. I'm not white. I cannot speculate what they're thinking in their heads, but I'm assuming maybe that's what they're thinking. They don't want to be in a way or something like that. But like I said, you're not at a concert, like you're streaming and the privacy around home. People don't even know you're there, unless you, I don't know. So it's always interesting.
Or maybe you need to do a commercial with people who are in the white bodies. So they're saying, at first, I didn't even want to look at the website. And then I tried it 7 days and I loved it. And I messaged DeShuna, can I sign up? She said, yes, of course. Having them speak to it's I don't even understand it.
Yeah.
And it also speaks to how white supremacy is not just a danger to the BIPOC community. It is also to white people. Everybody's humanity gets oppressed because it cuts both ways.
Right,
and you can't really experience your humanity if you feel like you can't engage with another or thinking you're going to make a mistake. Yeah, we're going to make mistakes. And the skin color becomes this monster and the elephant in the room that we just don't know how to be. Anyway, go ahead. You were going to say something?
I think you're right. I think that one of the things I've been doing, with this company, I guess I said first and foremost is the health and healing in my community, but also being in this space. I know that a lot of Black people are fatigued with sort of being an educator of, the Black experience. Being a verbal, they have a bunch of white friends and sort of having to be the one to explain to them, about racism and white supremacy. But I always tell people, just send a link to KweliTV. They can learn all they need to learn about the Black experience just by subscribing to KweliTV and learning more. But I've always been an open book about that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was at dinner with this woman, and it was me, my husband, and another woman, two other women, and we were just talking about. I went to the African American Museum here in DC, and how it was really inspiring to me. And there, I'm not sure if you've been, but there are certain sections of the wall that it shows like the different boats that people got on. It may have had like 500 people got on, on the continent, and then only 200 people got off in the U.S. or got off in Senegal. I'm not Senegal. Get off in like Portugal, or get off in wherever, other part, or get off in Haiti, and it was like 500 people, 200 people, 300 people, 20 people. It was just traumatic for me. I was like, oh my God, and who knows what was going on in those boats. And I was mentioning that in my story. And so the woman, being naive, she was probably like in her 70s. And so she was like, so which boat did your family come from? Which boat did...
Okay, go ahead.
which boat did my family? And my husband looks at me like, how are you going to answer that? Because
what did you say?
in my head,
no, what did you say, and what did you think?
Okay. So this is what I told her, and I let her finish, like, what boat, what year and what boat did it. And so I was like, well, I said, honestly, I don't know, because we were property. And if you're property, you're not a person. And so she's like, because she's Jewish, like, well, even, the Nazis kept records of my ancestors and da, da, da. I said, yeah, I said, very tragic what happened, but they still saw you as human enough to keep a written record. If they see you as the mule or the whole, whatever you're doing, using to make your money, they don't see you as a full human being. So there were no records. I have absolutely no idea what year, what boat, where my family. She thought maybe I knew like what African country my family came from, what boat and what year. Like I said, we have no idea. I said our history, our language was all ripped from us. On the boat. Once we got on the boat, there are people with different languages on the same boat. And then we come to it, their ancestors come to America and they're working for free, for centuries. And so she was like, she was just surprised. She just could not believe that, right? And so I was very gracious with her. And my head was like, what do you mean? What boat?
No, that's not what you said. What you mean? That's not what you said. That's not what you thought. I'm sure. I know what I would have thought. Like,
what the F do you mean?
Yes. It's like this. I know you. Ooh. I mean, I'm sitting here kind of like, I don't know if I'm engaging with that person, I'm sure I'll be different. But to hear it through you, ooh-wee.
But it goes to show sort of the ignorance. And the thing is, I didn't want to go off on her because like she may have another maybe not so well ill-informed question, right? I'm just trying to be diplomatic, right? Ill-informed question that she may want to ask from a Black person. I don't want to be a Black person like, what
they will answer it with their physical body or something more aggressive. Yeah,
exactly. And so I wanted to make sure that I answer a question so she would not be confused about the tragedy of slavery and the tragedy of colonialism and the tragedy of all of it, and the reason that you where you are and where I am, and we have we can have ancestors in Haiti, we can or Spain, like we're scattered all over the world because of this sin that whiteness did to Black people. Scattered us, to separate us all over. But I think that there has been this misconception about slavery being humane and not so bad, and and there were stories where the slave masters were nice to them. No, it was still slavery. You're still working against your will, and you were someone's property, and so we're here. I want to educate, so that's why we're here too. We definitely want to educate.
I'm with you. I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the insurrection in January 6th. And one of the things when I was watching CNN, I had this question come. It's amazing what will make a black man cry during the news or when they're doing that talking head conversation, talking about what happened, and to see what will make a white man cry on CNN or any news media. So when Van Jones get emotional, it's for me, it's like things that anybody on earth should be able to feel. There was another talking head. Was it David Axelrod or whatever? He worked with Barack Obama. And when he was talking about insurrection, he was crying. Now I get it. But it's just interesting to see the things that brings tears to some white people's eyes. And like when there's human beings being killed on the streets, your neighborhood, And that becomes, well, what did you do before that? We have a long way to go.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, we do have a responsibility to teach one another. I know we're getting close to the end of the show, but I want to ask you this, because this is something I think people are stepping into it more and more. Let's talk about ownership. Why is it important? Because I know you're passionate about that.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the networks now are really embracing Black culture. But while they're getting these first look deals, these overall deals, they still don't own their content. They're still signing a dotted line saying that this network will own a piece of this. And when that person passes on, that network is going to own their property. It won't be passed down to generation. Because the biggest sin, which is slavery, has decimated Black wealth around the world. You think about, like, you talk about people talking the U.S., Haiti, for instance, where, owing money to France. How dare they? How dare they? Right? Haiti would be so much further along if they were to own their own country and not having to pay France back. And they fought for freedom, but then having to, spend this money for their freedom is ridiculous. And so at the end of the day, the way to rectify the sins is by ownership. And I am so adamant about that, because people say, well, don't you want blah, blah to buy a KweliTV? Hell no. I want KweliTV to be owned by my family, just like the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and all that. They pass their money down from generation to generation. Then they have to sell to someone. They own it. And like Anderson Cooper's at Vanderbilt, and there are these benefits. Yeah, I learned later on. There are these benefits to being part of this legacy money and generational wealth that many Black people have never had a chance to do. If it weren't because the Tulsa, Oklahomas, and the Wilmington, North Carolinas, and all the other white mobs that destroyed, destroyed Black businesses because they
Black Wall Street and all that,
all those things. Like, how if white jealousy and white supremacy wouldn't have held its reign, right after slavery, Black people would be in a much better position, but white supremacy won. And because they were so far behind. And so now you're telling me that, I should sell off my company, or that, I think that we should be everywhere. I'm not telling a Black artist don't get a deal with Netflix, but also be open to making sure you control it, or having your own thing, or working with KweliTV where you own your stuff. We don't own it. We're just getting the rights to stream it, right? I think it's so important generationally for us to own our own stuff. Yes. That's the only way we're going to get out of this mess, unless we own it and we're able to pass it down. And then we don't have to wait for a VC to get why we're doing it. I don't need to listen to a bro in Silicon Valley and beg him for a check when we will have our own resources to be able to build up our own. I'm all about building our own. That's what I'm all about.
Yes, I feel you. So I'm looking at your website. You are on Roku TV as well, right? And all the iOS and Android.
Yes. We're on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Android TV, iOS, Google Play for Android. We're also on Comcast, Cox, and a live channel called Distro TV.
So on, so I see Cox here, I see Distro. So is it just by being a customer they have access to it, or is that a service they have to have additional? So
if you are a customer of Comcast, Cox, or Distro, then you'll have access to KweliTV. Or you can subscribe on our website and then have access there and have all the apps like Roku, Apple TV. If you subscribe like on Xfinity, you've only been able to watch it through Xfinity, through your cable provider. If you subscribe on our website, you can subscribe on our website, as well as have access to like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and all the other apps.
Yep, because even if you don't do cable anymore, you can just get it on your phone.
Exactly.
So for not just, I'm going to say for everyone who thinks we need to be far ahead and Black people who contribute more, whatever your case is, whether you support Black business, listeners, I invite you to check out KweliTV. You get 7 days free, $5.99 a month, or $49.99 a year, $50. That's all. You can go to Cheesecake Factory and spend that before you even start eating.
And appetizers and 2 drinks.
Yes, Lord. And by the time they bring the final bill, you're like, oh my goodness. But, anything else you want to add? Maybe something you're doing, whatever you feel like sharing. This is your time. And even if you have a special GoFundMe for you and your husband, you can share it.
No GoFundMe. I'm just asking people to support and keep me lifted up as I try to do this work. It's very hard, but I just want to thank you for the time to interview me and wanting to learn more about KweliTV.
Oh, sure, definitely. I'm inspired by what you're doing on so many levels. I have several thoughts, but I don't want to speak too soon and end up falling in those categories like, oh, we should do this. And then you never hear from the person anymore. But yes, thank you very much for what you're doing, for reclaiming the narrative, for being an inspiration, and even showing people how things could be done differently, because it is very important to have people that look like us doing something that we think is impossible.
Yeah.
I often joke, like, even up to this day, I mean, I don't watch TV that much, but there are times when I'm changing channels and I might say black person and I stop and there's a commercial. I'm like, oh, I do it here in UK. I did it when I was living in land. It's like, you just stop. There's something about seeing somebody that looks like you. Mm-hmm. And, what I will say is I am definitely open to however I can support you, KweliTV, because I believe in what you're doing, which is why I reached out to you the first. I was very moved and impressed. And I just honor you and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Thank you, my dear sister. Peace and blessings.
Peace.
Whew. If you're not inspired, let's just go ahead and do your transition service, memorial service right now. I mean, come on. What you can do if you feel like, oh my God, I needed to hear this. This is inspiring. Oh, I learned something. It's all about giving and receiving. I challenge you to go to Kweli.tv and sign up. $5.99. I mean, you can't even get a Happy Meal for that amount. Since we're talking about McDonald's anyway, this is a happy content that you can look and feel proud. And not only that, the person who created it, her journey. So you're not just invested in yourself, you're invested in someone who had a vision and has a vision. And just your act of doing that, you're giving back to what you say you believe in. Now, let spirit be your guide, but that's what I would like my listeners to do, to go subscribe and just go crazy, and then share with other people. Share it on your social media. #KweliTV. I think there's a hashtag as well. Don't we have a KweliTV has a hashtag, right? Is it I know Leslie would tell. Oh, there you go. Leslie's on it. Streaming for the culture. Yes, go and check it out. Look at the trailers and use that hashtag. Our culture curated. Support. Be part of the difference. Make a change. Whew. I'm just going to repeat myself if I keep talking. So I just want to tell you that I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. We're living in a new time. And I invite you, rather than worry, wonder what's going to happen in the future, be the future now. Live the future now. Create the future now. And support those who are doing it. I don't know if KweliTV has Cash App or anything like that, but you can Cash App them every month, $5.99. You ain't gonna miss it. You can afford it. Anyway, I'm out of here. You can find out more about me by going to lifecoachade.com. If you have a dream, you have a vision, but you find yourself feeling stuck and you want to take your aha moment and translate it into a reality, lifecoachade.com, or you can send me messages, preferably if you're doing it through Facebook, it's fine, but I don't always check the inbox, but I do make sure to come back and go through them. Leslie, thank you very much for all you're doing behind the scenes. Kweli. So Kweli, are you gonna have us change how we pronounce your name now? Kweli, Kwali. She said, "Beautiful Leslie. I think I referred to you as and she's talking to Leslie. Well, Angel is not a bad name to give her because the angel, she's an angel. She's really, I'm telling you, she's an angel. Woo! Anyway, thank you, Kweli, Shoyinka, New Jays, Deborah, those of you that are listening behind the scenes, well, I call you silent listeners. Thank you all for tuning in. Those of you listening to the archive, we love and appreciate you, and thank you so much. Let's release this conversation and, trust the process of life, and stay tuned to that inner voice. It's always guiding you. Peace and blessings.